Today on Metaphysical Mississippi, we have Karen Parker, and she has the website Karen Parker Continued. So today we're going to find out a little bit about her backstory as well as what she's up to now. So stay tuned. Hey Karen, so glad
Hey,
you're
Emily,
here.
I'm so excited to be here with you today.
No, me too. This is actually the day we're recording it, our 1 year anniversary. September 10th, last year, 2022, was when we released our first YouTube video. You have a little bit to do with the origin of what it has become, Metaphysical Mississippi, and I'm going to want you to share some of that. I'm just thrilled that you're actually a guest recording right now, 1 year, and when it releases, it'll be around the first anniversary of the first podcast, the audio version. So, um, thank you for coming on. And I know
Oh,
when
I'm
we
so
first,
happy.
yes, when we first, when I presented this idea with to Krista, the other co-host of Metaphysical Mississippi, who's not with me today. It's just me, Emily. Um, she mentioned you coming on, so I'm just so thrilled.
I'm so excited to be here. This is a great time for me to be here. And
I think, yeah, timing
yeah,
is,
timing
yes,
very prominent in my life.
yes. So when I was introduced to you, well, maybe behind your back, not in front of you, you were you were Karen Parker. She is considered the mother of metaphysics or the metaphysical. I may be messing up that quote,
Oh, the mother
but
of metaphysics. Yeah, yeah.
in the
For
Jackson area,
Jackson. For
yes,
Jackson.
Jackson area. So, with that, I would love to hear some of your origin story, how you can start at the day that you were born and to today, but I want the short version.
Okay. Okay. I'm actually from Jackson. I was born and raised in Jackson and keep coming back here. No matter where I go, I keep coming back to Jackson. And I have an idea now of why that is. So it's very important for me to be in Jackson at this time, especially starting my new venture, which we'll talk about in just a minute. And the mother of metaphysics, I got named that from Dennis Holmes, who came into one of the stores where I was working at the time, and we were talking about an event he was having, and he said, "You need to come because you're the mother of metaphysics." And it sort of stuck, and a lot of people have called me that since, even though now I'm more like the grandmother of metaphysics. I'm okay with that too, but a lot of people actually called me mom for a long time because that name kind of stuck. But I've actually been quite metaphysical for all of my life. And I guess that comes from my mother because my mother was very open to everything and never tried to make us follow one thought or one path or anything like that. She was just very open to everything and still is. Very excited to hear everything that's going on in the metaphysical world. So I was born in the 50s. I was a child of the 60s and 70s. And back then, there just was not a lot to be had. Back then, there were some books in the library, which I found and devoured. And, but life kind of went on its way. I have a degree in special ed from Mississippi State and found out really quickly that was not for me. But I just never lost sight of metaphysics and what it was and the supernatural and the paranormal and all of those things. And in the 70s, you started seeing more and more of that, more and more books and some TV shows that were coming out. And of course, they were right up my alley. I loved it. But I guess my metaphysical life, even though I've always had experiences all of my life, my metaphysical life started when I was living in Greenville with my second husband, who was the love of my life. And in the year 2000, he died. He passed away. And I suffered from like an existential crisis after that. I couldn't go back to the regular job that I had. I just couldn't bring myself to do that. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And my sister Sunny and I were talking on the phone, and I was telling this to her, and she started laughing and said, "Well, don't you remember our other sister, Janet?" And the three of us had decided that when we got to be old ladies, we would get one of those big Victorian houses in Vicksburg and have a bookstore in the bottom and live in the top and drive each other crazy. So she said, "Well, now you can go open the bookstore." And it was like a light bulb literally went on over my head. And I said, "I can, but I'm going to have a metaphysical bookstore." Because all the little weirdo kids like me had nowhere to go and find other books or talk to people about it. There was just nothing to be had. So I decided to give people the tools and the books and the things that were coming out. And in the 80s, uh, there was a huge upsurge in metaphysics and the unknown, and all of that sort of thing began to be written about, our spiritual natures, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It was really becoming a huge explosion in the metaphysical world. And so I was very much into that. And so I began to read and study and research how to open a store, what to do, what did people need. And a couple of years later, I opened my store. So it was called New Vibrations. And I know now why it was called New Vibrations, although at the time my brother said it sounded like a sex toy store. I said it didn't matter. Whatever brought him in the door, I was good with,
Well, maybe
whatever.
it was.
Maybe.
You don't know what they used with those tools and
No, we don't. And we didn't want to know. Whatever you do, once you buy it, it's yours. I don't care.
no return.
No
So,
returns. No returns. That's right. But so my sisters helped me open my store, and it was a little store in Fondren, right in between Fondren Corner and Walker's. And we painted it purple, of course. And
yeah.
it was just wonderful and beautiful and full of color and all things from all over the world. That was sort of my fascination. I loved reading about religions all over the world, cultures all over the world. I wanted to be an archaeologist or anthropologist when I grew up, but that was not to be. Um, but anyway, as time went on, and I was thinking about what I wanted to do at the store, I came up with a sort of a sideline that we were a store of cultural and spiritual diversity, because you could find just a little bit of everything there from all over the world, every different path, uh, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, all those lovely and terrible gods and goddesses, and um, Wicca and the Native American traditions and spiritual beliefs. It was just, that was just my thing. So it was my store, and that's what I did with it. And it was lovely, and people really resonated with it. They came, they stayed for hours. Um, but one of the interesting things was, and one of the things that sort of followed me in my life, is that before the store was opened and I was rushing down Lakeland Drive trying to get some last minute things done, um, this voice said to me, "All the things in the store are important, but the most important thing is to give people a place to gather and network." And I've never forgotten that. It's always been my mantra, sort of, in everything that I've done. So we fixed up the back room, which is a great big room. it had windows all around it. It was a beautiful room, and we put couches and chairs in it, loaded all of our books in there, and put a coffee and tea station, and people could come and have a glass of water or a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and talk and speak to each other, network, read magazines or books, whatever they wanted to do, and just kind of soak up the energy. And it was just lovely for quite a while. So that's about how New Vibration started. It started from my passions and my whims and my desires to provide that kind of thing for Jackson, as well as most of Mississippi. There were some stores already in around Hattiesburg and down on the coast, and even one in Columbus, but there was nothing in Jackson, and had not been anything in Jackson as far as I knew until me. So I was the mother of metaphysics, and that was okay with me.
I was I, when you mentioned 2000 and the passing of the love of your life, that date, wow, that year.
Yeah,
I mean, that 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 was a big year.
it was.
Oh, um, that just touched me. I knew your story, but I didn't realize the date.
And just
Well,
after the beginning of 2000, it was in January that he passed. And but
wow.
it started me on a totally different path. I thought I would be there in Greenville living with him for the rest of my life. I thought the rest of my life was planned out. But I've really come to be convinced that we actually set up contracts before we come here. We set up agreements as to what we would like to do and the people we would like to do it with. And it was one of those things that I knew after he died, that there was something more that I was supposed to do. And I didn't know what that was at first until Sonny and I were talking. And that light bulb came on over my head where I thought, this is what I have to do. And my parents tried to talk me out of doing my store in Jackson. They thought, oh, no, you shouldn't do it in Jackson. But to me, there was no other place to do it. Who better needed it than Jackson?
Yeah. I years ago, well, probably around 2000 or a little earlier, I feel pulled to Jackson too, and I do not understand it. I do not understand it.
I have to tell you, you are among many. We used to have people come into the store, not a week went by without two or three people coming in saying, I just moved here. I don't even know anything about Jackson. I don't know why I'm here, but I'm supposed to be here for some reason. And so I think
Yeah,
that I think the difference is that we needed the energy of people that were positive and light bringing and would add to the energy here in Jackson, because I
yeah,
know that was why my store had to be named New Vibrations, because I gave Jackson a new vibration. We brought in a new vibration to Jackson and a new energy and more light. And that was what I was here to do.
so let's see where. So, got the store,
Mhm.
and then life took you into another direction.
It did. Um, the store, I was told that the store would be open for 5 years. And after about, it was literally 4.5 years, I actually had a visitation by a little blue light being who told me that things were about to change. And I had no clue what that was, had no idea it was talking about the store or what. I just knew that it was a message for me and that things would be changing. And just a couple of months later, the economy went down. We had a terrible housing crisis and a depression in 2008. And not 3 months later, my store closed. When people are worried about how to pay their mortgages and rent, you can't worry about coming in to get some new books and statuary and buy more packs of incense. I mean, it's the reality of life. And so um, we ended up closing, and I hated to close it. That was my baby. But at the same time, I just had this confidence that there was something else out there. And within a couple of months, I was told that some friends of mine were opening a store in front of Rainbow that was called Fair Trade. And I said, "Do you need some help?" And they said, "Yes." So I helped them open the Fair Trade store that sat right in front of Rainbow Grocery. And I helped open it, and I stayed and managed it for about 5 years until I felt like it was time for me to go in another direction. And from there, I had a couple of different jobs. I worked for my sister for a short time, and then um, I went to work at the Petrified Forest, and uh, actually got to live in the little A-frame in the forest for a while, which was so amazing. And
Oh,
then I found a house that was on a horse farm in Flora that was just my picture of heaven, and I loved it there so much. But when and I had been offered another job after the Petrified Forest by a dear friend of mine who was actually one of the first people that ever came into New Vibrations. She and I struck a friendship up with each other, and we just loved each other. And when I was out of a job, she called me and said, "I have something for you," and it's working for the state. And I'm still there,
yeah.
and loving it. And that's just my wonderful, safe place to be. But that happened in 2019, and then um, I also got told, and well, in 2020, it was COVID was pretty big. And although I really wasn't hit with COVID as much as other things, but 2020, my stepson passed away, and my boyfriend of 10 years died a few months later. And then I got the notice that I had to move from the horse farm. So I came into Jackson to look for a place to live again, came back into Jackson.
Mhm,
And my sister Sunny lived in some apartments, and I got an apartment here near her. And I've been here ever since. I'm there here now. And
mhm.
having my job at the state was great. But I actually kind of missed part of the story that I think is pretty important. And that is when I left the Petrified Forest, um, I met a lady that was starting a new metaphysical store here. And that's Soul Synergy. And I helped her open Soul Synergy and worked there for her for a year. And back then it was down Castlewoods, down
Yeah.
Lakeland at Castlewoods. And I just realized that at the time that nothing, my store, my group, nothing ever really changes. It just transitions into another form. And Soul Synergy has transitioned into another form. They have new owners, and they have a new place to be. Now they're on Lakeland Cove, and some wonderful things are happening because of that. But
Yeah.
after, when I was at Fair Trade, I had a lot of customers. I'm kind of going like this in my history. So,
That's okay.
doesn't matter.
I'm
Doesn't
keeping
matter.
track.
Okay, good. Good. I'm glad you are, because obviously I'm not. But after I had closed my store and began working for Fair Trade, um, everybody was finding me there saying, "Where is everybody? Where is it? Where did everybody go? I want to see everybody again." And so, because it had been about a year since I had closed the store, I said, "Well, let's have a reunion." So we set up a reunion, and had a wonderful time. And everybody kept saying, "We need to do this more often." And so I had the idea of starting a monthly group. I had a monthly group at New Vibrations, but we took it like out to another place and met at another place, of course, and met every month for 6 years. And that group was pretty active for about 6 years. By then, other people had come into town. I met Duane, my bestie, and she
Yeah.
started some groups of her own, and some other people had a couple of groups as well. And after it had been 12 years since I had started New Vibrations, and I was still pretty much very the active part of metaphysics in Jackson, although there were beginning to be many others. I'm not saying by any means that I was the only one, but um, it just got to be something that I said it's time to pass this on to someone else and to do something else. And so I sort of melded my group with Duane's group, Metaphysical Mississippi.
Yes.
And then at some point in 2020, I began to sort of reevaluate. And in 2021, I had a health crisis of my own. And so I just stayed in. I quit going to groups. I quit going to anything. I just stayed in and healed and recuperated and reevaluated. And at that point is when I start calling myself Karen Parker Continued, because after about a year, Duane had been doing sort of the same thing. And Duane and I said, it's time to get back out. It's time to get back out and to be
Mhm.
involved with people again. And look, I'm an introvert. I'm good with being by myself, but I just knew that it was time to start doing something else. And she had passed Metaphysical Mississippi on to Krista and
Yeah.
eventually to you and Krista. And
Yes.
and I just have to say, y'all have taken it in directions that Duane and I could never have taken it. You have done such beautiful, amazing things with Metaphysical Mississippi. And this is one of them. I never could have done this, and I
Thank
never
you.
would have done it. And y'all are just, the community is just so full and happy now. We have a wonderful metaphysical store. We have the holistic healing and health center that Krista started. Y'all have continued on with Metaphysical Mississippi. It's just absolutely beautiful. I'm happy to be the grandmother and
Yeah.
not be on the leading edge anymore. And it's kind of interesting because most people don't even know me. That just tells you that there are so many new faces, so many new people that are into metaphysics and the their spiritual natures, that it's just amazing how it's grown and how y'all have grown it. It's just wonderful. So I'm loving watching everything happening. I'm quite content just being in the background, just saying, "Good, go girls, go! You
Mhm.
got it, you got it," and just letting everybody take the lead and staying back here and just nodding and smiling and attending when I feel led, and that's where I am today. So
Well, I'm just going to say about this community that I was given messages myself to play, and to trust. Um, I've already forgot my mantra because I must have it down. I don't need to repeat it. Play, walk, and trust.
play,
And
walk, and
that
trust.
was my mantra. That was something that was given to me actually in a past life regression session, and it the playing, the walking. When I say walk, it's kind of put in the work, take the steps,
That's right.
take the steps, and the trust. It is all come to things that you put on your worry list. uh, needs that you put, they're taken care of. Like today, I needed to go to the store and get trash bags. I mean, I verbalized that I need to get trash bags, and then somebody gives me a whole box of trash bags because I was going to be late for your interview, and I stopped at the store to get trash bags. Voila! Here you
Oh
go.
my
I got a
gosh.
whole box.
You manifested them.
Yes,
I
and I
love it
didn't
when that
realize
happens.
I was doing it. But
You
that
are.
is um when you approach people in the way that you have modeled it through the new vibrations, breaking down walls of culture and people's belief systems, and all those words that you said earlier in the interview about what that store was. When you approach life that way, I think that it just opens up to you
It does. It
things.
truly
So
does. I
it's
never had a problem in the store. Um, my parents were very anxious because they said, well, you'll be picketed by the churches and, they won't like the fact that you're there. And I never had a moment's problem. And I will tell you that my answer to that was, well, if they come, I'll call the news to let them come take videos and show my store. Free advertising, right? And then
yeah,
I'll offer everybody some tea and say, come on in and let's talk. But I
yeah,
never had to do that because they were all very gracious. Anybody from that came to me that was from a church and they told me they were from a church was met with complete openness. And I had wonderful Christian books. I had wonderful things from everywhere, and that included Christianity. But
yeah,
one of the things that I would tell a small group that would come in occasionally that was brought into our store, it was a school of nursing, and they would bring them, she would bring her students in and have us talk about chakras and energy systems in the body and oils and colors and different things that we could do with chakras and that sort of thing. She said, how how did you come to be here? And I said, well, Jackson is no longer the small little Baptist community it might have been when I was coming up. Less than a block from my store was the University Med Center, which had almost 5,000 people working there that were from all over the world of every spiritual
yeah.
path that you could imagine. And
Mhm.
we just weren't that little small town anymore. And we had to grow and open our minds to other cultures and other ways of thinking. And it doesn't mean that you can't stay with your own way of thinking and your own culture, but it just means just recognizing that there are others out there and that there is a place for everyone. And there's no reason to be territorial. Jackson is going to be what it's going to be. And we helped open that. We also gave people a place to come that were just curious. And it worked beautifully. People that were um, uh, openly Christian, like I said, we never had any problem with anybody. If they wanted to
Mhm.
come in and ask us questions about what we were doing, they were welcome to. Um, I had lovely people that worked for me, and they all understood what I was doing and trying to do there, and it just
Mhm.
worked. It just worked beautifully. So for almost 5 years, we did that. And then when the store closed and I opened Fair Trade, and people began to say, where is everybody? We need to meet. Again, my mission was that I give people a place to gather and network. So when I opened the New Vibrations Network, which was our monthly gathering,
Yes.
again, that gave people a place to come and meet others, to gather, to network, and it just worked. And when you set that type of energy and intention up, like you're doing now, it
Mm-hmm.
just sort of falls into place for you. And it's so difficult to explain to people who don't believe it. But if they would just begin thinking that way, they would begin to see the little idiosyncrasies, the little chances, the little coincidences that we all call synchronicities begin to come from out of nowhere. Who knew you were
Mm-hmm.
going to get a box of trash bags?
I know.
I mean, of all things to get, that was what you needed.
I, when we drop, I think it's when we drop the fear and embrace things through love. That's the key, I
It is
think.
the key.
And if you just approach life in that way, and we won't. But that's what I feel is any kind of group that comes together. And we're going to discuss a new group that's coming up for you too. But drop the fear and accept the love and love others. Um,
For a
anyway.
lot of people, that's so difficult to do. And I understand that. I get it. But one of the major points that I would like to bring up about that is it doesn't mean you won't have heartache and heartbreak and sometimes terrible things happen. It just means that there is something bigger at work than just you. And
Mhm.
sometimes you just have to understand that there is a bigger picture and to move through whatever you're experiencing as best you can. You can't push it down, you have to move through it. And when you begin to move through it, it's like Spirit says, hey, we've got another plan for you. We've got some great things in store for you. And it just begins to materialize and to happen. And one of the most wonderful things that I've received because of this is a wonderful new person that works for me that was
Oh,
moving to Jackson and needed a job. And I said, hey, I've got a job open. Not only that, our apartments have some opening and you can live here near me. So,
yeah,
and here you are.
right.
And I'm
I'm your
so
assistant now.
excited to be a catalyst for you,
It
watching all of that manifest.
I mean, it's true. This year, every it didn't happen as fast as I wanted it to, but everything that I put on my list of that needed to happen, it did. But I did the
Good.
work. I did the work.
Yes, you have to do the work. You have
Yes,
to.
and I know I
And
wasn't sure if I was going to share that I was your assistant because you may not want to claim me.
you may not want to claim me.
No, no, it um yeah, this is proof that and that would be sitting here. And
And
I'll
here
see you
we
tomorrow.
are. Yeah. And here we are. That's
Yes, here
just,
we
it's
are.
beautiful. And it'll be
It,
good for as long as it's good.
yes,
And I
it
have no
will.
expectations, just enjoy it while it's here. That's all I
Yeah,
do.
that's so true.
Yeah.
So now that you have come out of a season of rest, and uh, I don't want to say you cocooned yourself, but
Oh, I very much did. Very much. And I knew I had and deliberately did so.
yes,
But it was a time of recuperation and
yes.
rest and reevaluating for
Mm-hmm.
myself. I had done New Vibrations. I had done New Vibrations Network. I had done several other things. I had opened some stores. I had worked in other places. I had had a lot of experience, but experiences is one of the things that kept happening for me. And I'd had experiences with many different things when I was a kid. I saw ghosts. I
Yeah.
saw lights in the sky. I had my first UFO experience in the mid 60s, 70s, where it literally flew over the top of the car that I was in. And I hung out the window watching it and looking at it and pointing my finger at it for a good long time. And I had another experience where I had a sighting in when I was working at Fair Trade. And it was probably about 2011 or 2012. Um, I saw an object in the sky moving away from me when I was on my way to work that morning. And it was not a plane. It looked like literally like a big square rectangle. And the sun glinted off of it, or I would never have seen it. But that was my second sighting. I've had other sightings that were just lights. I've had different kinds of experiences. I've had visitations. I've had all kinds of knowings and uh, being taken somewhere in my sleep uh, that I never would have guessed when I was awake that I was actually going to those places.
Yeah.
Different things happening. And so when I began to come out of my cocoon, one of the first things I came to was the Metaphysical Mississippi meeting. And back in July, we talked about UFOs. And I thought, oh, no, I got to go to this one. I've got to
Yeah.
go. And Duane
Yeah.
and I showed up and I shared a little bit of my experience. And it was very eye opening. And when I left, I said, something is telling me that I need to continue this. Um, I need to do something about this. There were so many people there, and I know that with the hearing, the congressional hearing on UAPs
Yeah.
recently, and how many doors that's opened. Some of the other hearings that were taking place before that were just amazing. How many people were coming forward to tell their stories, and I began to think of the people that were not necessarily pilots and insiders that were coming out as whistleblowers, but just everyday people that were having experiences and had sometimes never even told another living soul. And that they were having some of the same experiences I was having, or
Yeah.
that they were having different types of experiences. And it just occurred to me, I need to start another group. And again, carry forward my mission of gathering and networking people. And
Yeah.
so I started talking to my bestie, Duane, and she and I put our heads together. And I said, I think this is where I'm going, that I want to open a sort of support group and just a gathering group for us to get together and talk about all of these things that none of us really knows what's happening. We just
Right.
think we have an idea, and it's important to hear other people and what they think, and uh, just to get together and know that you're not alone. So many of us feel alone in those experiences. I know I did when I was a kid. There was certainly nobody to talk to when I was a kid, not in Jackson, Mississippi. There might have
Right.
been in some of the big cities, but not here.
Yeah.
So I began to look at calendars and look at what I wanted to do and sort of lay the groundwork for what I'm calling the UFO Experiencer Group. And
Yeah.
this is
The flyer.
the flyer that a wonderful friend of mine did for me. And I'm not mentioning any names. I'm not talking about you, Emily. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I do flyers, and Emily has com. Okay, there's my plug.
but it's going to be held the first Thursday of each month, beginning in October. So that's October 5th will be our first
Yeah,
gathering. And it's going to be every first Thursday. It's going to be from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. And it's going to be held at Soul Synergy Wellness Center. And the Wellness Center is to the right of the store itself. And it
right.
happens to be where Dennis Holmes, who named me Mother of Metaphysics, has his AccuCare acupuncture business now. And it's where the salt cave is. So you'll know where it is. There's a conference room in the middle, and we're
Yeah.
going to be in that conference room. It's 3010 Lakeland Cove, Suite Z1 in Flowood. And anybody that wants to share a story or is just interested is welcome to come. I do have a couple of um, things that I need to ask people, and that is to please remember that not everybody might have had all the experiences that you or I have had. And it is really important to allow people to speak in confidentiality and with respect from others. And so, for that reason, there will be no photographs allowed and no audio or video taping done. Everybody has the right to tell their story in confidence. And that is one of the ways that I can make sure that that happens.
Yeah.
And also, um, if people come, I'm not going to allow anyone to, sorry, people, but do what I call ambulance chase. I
Right.
cannot allow it. People will not come back. None of us are therapists, and
Right.
I certainly am not a therapist. So I don't pretend to say what people are experiencing and why they're experiencing it. I cannot say what they are experiencing. I can't say what they're not. If there is a therapy or something that you offer that you would like to offer people that come to the group, they can sign up through metaphysicalmississippi.com. They have a
Mhm.
business and service directory, and you can sign up there and put your information on that list, and we will refer everyone to that list, and it will be up to them to decide what is right for them to pursue, what kind of help they need, if any. And that is what I can do to make sure that they have as positive an experience as I can make it in this group. So that's
Yeah.
that's what the group is about, and that's what we intend to do. And it's just for anybody that wants to come to be able to tell their story, or just to sit and listen to other people tell their stories. Um,
You,
so,
what keeps? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
no,
cut
no,
you
go
off.
ahead.
But what keeps coming in my head is someone may want to come who, I mean, you label it UFO, but what they're experiencing may not be something that they can articulate in words that uh, we've labeled. So, this would also probably be a safe space for someone who is just, experiencing something that is beyond their understanding. And that I know that you'll create a space for those to articulate it in the best way they know how, but not force a label on it.
Absolutely. You are so right in that. It is not just for UFO experiencers or people that feel like they've been abducted. Um, it
Right.
is not just for those people. I've had so many different experiences myself. One of the first experiences I had was laying in bed as a kid, and seeing colors swirling all over my body. And I had no clue what that was. I had no clue what chakras were. I didn't know what those colors were. And I know now that what I was seeing was my own chakras, was my own color energy floating around me. It's for anybody who has had any type of experience that they are not they may not have a clue what it is. We may not have a clue what it is. We're not bringing you there to try to fix you and to try to name what it is. Absolutely not. Everybody is there to talk about their own experiences, and it may or may not have anything to do with UFOs or sightings. It could just be something unusual, out of the ordinary that you've experienced, and you just don't have a clue what it is. And again, you may never have spoken to anybody else about it, or may not be satisfied with what you are feeling or hearing that it might be. But let's get together. Let's talk about it. Let's air out some of these things that maybe people have been holding inside for years. And let's just get together and see what comes of it. And I'll share some, y'all share some. We'll all get together and talk about different things. But this did springboard off the UFO experiencer um,
Right.
information that was coming out from the government, because the government has said there are things out there that we don't know what they are. I think it's a much bigger picture than that. And I think a lot of things that we're all experiencing have to do with that, because I believe personally that we as a human species, we are undergoing an evolutionary process right now. We are beginning to open up and question everything we've ever been told is the truth, and
Yeah.
everything that we have based our whole lives on. A lot of people are going to go into a shock, and they're not going to know what to think and what to do. And so I want to give people a safe place to come that we can air those things. It may not be UFOs at all. It may be that you see things moving around the room, or you're hearing a voice, or it could be so many different things. So
How,
let's talk about it.
yeah. And how can we label what's the fear? But, you know, to, we have a cell phone now. This is the norm. But think of, but 200 years ago or so, the thought
We're
that
talking about
a
50,
voice, no, 50, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I'm not a history major.
30 years ago.
That voices from across the world can come to you.
Yeah,
Why why is it, or that there are objects in the sky?
yeah,
I mean, that would be a UFO to them. To I mean, it just, fear again, fear that
yeah,
labels things. Let's break that
yeah.
fear. Let's just
Let's
embrace.
break that fear, and let's
Yeah,
just start talking about it. That's the first step. Is start
yeah,
sounding it out and talking about it. I'm calling it the UFO experiencer group because I want people to get caught by that title, that it's something new and different. And
yeah,
let me just go ahead and say that if they need information, they can find me or find this flyer, this information through my website, KarenParkerContinued.com, and they can
mhm,
find this, and they can also connect with me there. If they want to email me, they can email me through there. Um, and let's go with this. Let's talk about what's happening. None of us has the answer. We're still trying to put all of this together, and it's important that we support each other and give each other a safe place to come and do that. And so that's
mhm.
what I'm choosing to do.
There,
Raising my
spread.
head above the firing line again.
Yes, yes. Say again, I love Soul Synergy's conference room. I love the. All
They
right.
have the big room, but I love this little smaller conference room over in the wellness section near the
Yes.
salt cave. It is
Yeah.
so comfortable. I just love it.
It is.
And I'm so happy to be there. And they were very gracious to allow me to meet there, to bring my group there. Very happy about that. There is
Um,
no cost for the group. I will put out a basket for anyone that can put a couple of dollars in to donate for the cost of the room, for the cost of anything, the electricity and that sort of thing. I'll
yeah.
turn back into Soul Synergy to allow them to uh, to have the benefit of us being there and not have to absorb all of our costs. But don't let that stop you. Come anyway. We want to talk to everyone. We want everyone to come.
So that's October 5th, the first meeting.
First meeting,
Oh,
October 5th.
does anyone need to kind of do any kind of registration?
No, nothing at all. Just come. I won't be putting out a list of uh, people to sign in because, again, I want it to stay as confidential as possible. And if you want to email me and get on a mailing list, you can do that through my website. Again, that's Karen Parker, KarenParker, continued.com. You can email me there and I'll be happy to put you on a mailing list that I will create for this group.
Thank you, Karen.
Good question. Thank you.
Well, Karen, thanks for opening this space for people to come and share space and experiences in the safety of others.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's my pleasure to do it. I'm very excited about it. And I'm very excited to hear some wonderful stories and for us just to, like my mission says, gather and network. That's all it's
Mhm.
about,
Yeah.
supporting each other.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
All right. We'll see y'all later.
Okay, bye.
The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent.